Welcome, everyone. We are the Brain Injury Advisory Council for the Brain Injury Association of America. And as a group, we are survivors, one caregiver, leaders, educators, advisors, advocates, and we serve as mentors. And together, all of us added together have over 150 years of experience living with brain injury. That's a lot of experience that we bring to the table. And we try to use this experience by doing videos such as this, educating others about brain injury. We advocate on a national level, we advocate on a state level, we advocate on a local level. No matter where we are, we're advocating for brain injury and injury survivors wherever they are. Again, I'm Kelly Lang. I am from Virginia and I had my brain injury in 2001. I would like to introduce my co-leader, Carol Starr.
Thanks, Kelly. As Kelly said, I am Carol Starr. I am coming to you from Maine, and my injury was in 1999.
Angela,
Hi, y'all. I'm Angela Lee Tucker. I live in Asheville, North Carolina, and my car crash happened in 2008.
Kazashay,
Hi everyone, I'm Kaza Marie. I'm based in Phoenix, Arizona, and my brain injury occurred in 2017.
Darcy,
Hi, I'm Darcy Keith. I live in Fishers, Indiana. My brain injury I experienced in 1991.
Kelly,
I'm Kellie Pokrifka, and I'm in Virginia, and my brain injury occurred in 2013.
and Josh.
Hey everyone, my name is Josh. I'm living in New Hampshire and I have been living with a brain injury since 2003.
And Stacia.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stacia Bissell, and I live in Massachusetts, and I have lived with a brain injury since 2011.
So now we're going to hear from Josh and Kelly, who are going to discuss point 7. A person with a brain injury should be seen as a whole person.
This talking point really had two different aspects to me. Like one, addressing all the different injuries and symptoms and conditions and everything that comes up during your brain injury, especially initially after it. Like you mentioned, like so many doctors and needing to make sure that you or some of your care providers are like putting all those pieces together and not just focusing on, all right, like you're having eye problems and is that being affected by like different medicine you're on or something like that.
Absolutely. I definitely had something that I thought was, a huge issue, and I thought immediately it was the brain injury. My resting heart rate was just through the roof, and we found out, I don't, maybe 2 years in, like, oh, that was just the medication I was put on to treat some of the symptoms. And it's just so entangled. Everything is so difficult, and especially when you don't have the clearest communication between different providers, if they're in different healthcare systems, or if, yeah, they just don't have the time to discuss between providers. It gets really, really hard to tell, like, what is coming from what therapy will be effective for this symptom, and could it possibly make this symptom worse? And it's just so complicated.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing that came up to me when thinking about this was that, the brain injury is definitely can be a big part of your life, but it doesn't define you, and that it feels like it can consume you or it is going to be the center of your life forever. But it can be helpful if you take a step back and remember that, you are a person, you provide value, you're strong, you're lovable, and you got to keep going. And like you still are a whole person. And like that's what's I don't know, easy to forget about when you get stuck with something.
Exactly. I feel that so much. And it's also like you said, this for many of us, this is something that will affect us for maybe a short time, maybe a long time, maybe the rest of our lives. And even though we did have a brain injury, we're still going through, you know, aging, growing up, like different life stages, and we would have been going through that regardless of the brain injury. And I feel like for me, it's pretty easy to forget, like if something's happening, I develop a new symptom, like, oh no, like I start to spiral, like the brain injury's, getting worse again. I'm going through a bad flare. And maybe, it would have happened anyway. And just trying to figure out that balance and being able to talk to my doctors, saying, like, there is a possibility this is a brain injury symptom. There's also a possibility it's not. Regardless, here's all the information. How do I go forward from that?
Yeah, I think that's important. Like bring in the whole perspective and whether it is actually affected because of your brain injury or not. But you got to take a wider view to that.
I think when I first started, I was so debilitated that I would go into appointments and really have no idea what was going on. I could listen occasionally, I could like cognitively be there in the appointment, but I definitely wasn't able to keep comprehensive notes, remember like how to juggle all of these different appointments and all of these different opinions and suggestions and symptoms and medication doses and sleep schedules, and just everything was so overwhelming. And I was really privileged because I had my mom and she was able to come to all of my appointments. She made this very overwhelming binder that I still take to a lot of appointments today. That's just probably like this thick at this point, which is different therapies and different doctors' names and fax numbers so that they can communicate their notes. And I know having someone like that is such an enormous privilege, and a lot of us do not have that, which is, like pretty devastating. But if you are able to have someone there, even just someone who, has an outside perspective and may have interpreted something that the doctors said differently from you, and so that way you can discuss it after, I think that's really important. And I know that there's different patient care coordinators, so if you don't have someone that, has the ability to show up to a lot of appointments or anything, they can sort of help provide some of the lift from that enormously hard job.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is a great point here too, is if you can be lucky to have a a parent or caregiver or anyone that can advocate on your behalf and help you navigate this, uh, it's gonna help immensely throughout the whole journey. And uh, the more that that person or those people can view you, as a whole person and not get stuck on certain conditions or symptoms that you're going through, that's going to help provide you the best care.
Would you say that this point impacted the way you discussed either to doctors or loved ones, or the advice you would give to brain injury survivors right now?
Yeah, I would say it just is a good way to remember to not get too focused on if you have something that's going on, that's one thing, that it can affect other things, and that you need to take a, a larger view and approach to address your overall well-being, and what's the best way to help you overall, and how different things can affect each other. And the more that we can remember that uh, as as people, as well as we can drive our doctors or our caregivers to think about that, that'll help us in the long run.
Yeah, definitely. Our brain controls a lot of our body controls a lot of our brain, our mind, our personality. They're all impacted by brain injury, and they all impact the way, we're handling brain injury and how we continue to grow and develop after brain injury. So just remember, like, you're not your brain injury. It's a thing. It can affect so many things. It can be very overwhelming, but you are still there, regardless of the changes, and you deserve care for every aspect. And don't be afraid to ask for care for every aspect, because you do deserve that.
Absolutely. And then if you are fortunate enough to have someone else to work with, or to advocate for you, or if you can get uh, care assistance, then that person can definitely have a great perspective and help to make sure that you're getting everything looked at from a wider viewpoint and able to get the best help for you.
Agreed. And one thing about that with the coordinating care, I realized that if I asked my doctors, hey, could you put in the notes from this appointment? Why am I on this medication? Like what symptom it's supposed to help with? That made it a lot easier for in case I forgot it down the road and, a different provider would be like, why this therapy or why this medication? I would have it written down so that I didn't have to use what little cognitive energy I had to remember all of these minute changes that, would continue to change over the course of the path. And that just made it easier to be able to keep in one place in one binder.
That's great. Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. It's easy to forget with so many things going on.
So many things.
So now we're going to have Carol and Stacia are going to give some commentary on Josh and Kellie's piece.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. This topic, seeing someone with a brain injury as a whole person is so important. And Josh and Kelly focused a lot on the medical side of things, which is really good since it's a really big part of a survivor's life, unfortunately. I like that they argued that brain injury survivors are going to have to manage symptoms for a long time, but also manage other normal medical stuff that comes into play over the course of someone's lifetime, like aging, for example. Um, so it's important that providers hear and consider all sides to the person and the story. But there's a whole other piece of this too to mention, aside from the medical, and that's the fact that we wear a lot of other hats in our lives and we have other roles. For example, I'm a mother and I'm a grandmother and a coach and an educator, and Carol, you too, right?
Yes, yes. As when Stacia and I were thinking about how to respond to this topic, we wanted to add to it and add thinking about all of those identities that we do have besides brain injury survivor. I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm an aunt, I'm a friend, I'm a speaker, an author, a mentor. I'm somebody who loves researching my family history. I like axe throwing. I like to write. I like to walk. Every single one of us has multiple identities outside of one thing that happened to us, whether that's one thing that happened to us a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. We are all whole people. And you have many identities too. You named a few, Stacia.
Yeah,
I know there are more.
I was just gonna say, Carol, like you just rattled off so many. I'm like, okay, that brings up to mind that I'm a camper and a kayaker and a biker and a hiker and a gardener and I play pickleball and the piano and I'm also a public speaker and have authored some pieces that have been published. And I'm someone who loves spreadsheets and horseback riding and motorcycle racing. And who knew, right? About that. So there are so many things. And alongside, I'm also an aunt and a niece and a sister and all of that. So yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
So our
important.
encouragement to folks is to not always lead with, I'm a brain injury survivor, to think about all of those other identities that we also have in our lives.
Thank you both.
Be sure to watch our Survivor to Survivor videos of all 12 points from the Communicating About Brain Injury statement.
Thanks for watching our videos. Bye.